Good morning. I'm B. Gonzalez, Chair of the NYPA and Canal's Corporation Governance Committee. Joining me today are committee members John Koelmel, Dennis Trainor, Cecily Morrison, and Louis Warren Jr. Also participating are fellow members Lori Wheelock and Michael Krusek. Welcome NYPA and Canal's Corporation President Justin Driscoll and his team. This meeting is a scheduled committee meeting, which has been duly noticed as required by law. I would like to call this joint authority and Canal's meeting to order. First up is the approval of the March 12th, 24 proposed agenda. Are there any amendments to the proposed agenda?
Don, I'm happy to move the agenda.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next portion of the meeting will be held in executive session. The meeting will resume in open session in approximately 45 minutes. May I have a motion to conduct an executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation pursuant to Public Officers Law 105F?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Oh, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, off to executive session we go. Now that we're back in open meeting, may I have a motion to resume meeting in open session?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second, Morris.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Let me state that no votes were taken during the executive session. So now we're moving on to the discussion portion of our meeting. First up is Nancy Harvey, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer with members of her team.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning,
Good morning.
trustees, colleagues, members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at NYPA and Canals. I'm Nancy Harvey. I'm the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. And as we all know, diversity, equity, and inclusion is about creating an inclusive environment and culture for our organization. And DEI is one of the foundational pillars of Vision 2030 strategy. Next slide, please. So NYPA is the largest state public power organization in the nation. And so we have always set an example in the energy industry and the state with our commitment to producing clean, renewable energy and creating jobs across New York. In 2020, we were challenged to double our efforts to build a talented and diverse workforce and a culture that is welcoming and inclusive. Out of that, we created the DEI working group, and that was chiefly to support leaders in rapidly responding to a changing social environment, generating what we refer to as the 10-point plan. So the working group was made of a cross-section of our business unit leaders. Out of HR, we had strategic supply management, leaders from environmental justice, customer solutions, and other business units. And this was designed deliberately to gather diverse input and to use ideas and opinions from various perspectives. So with your support of the trustees and the leaders here and the CEO and president, we have been working towards activating and delivering these commitments as an organization. So today you will hear about our progress against the 10-point plan. We're going to talk about our current situation. We're going to talk about our accomplishments and what we've learned and the way forward. And we're also going to talk about our intention to continue to improve the experience and involve the culture of inclusion for all employees and to externally work with our customers and our partners. So I'm going to introduce Kaela Mainsah, my colleague, to talk about environmental justice. Next slide. Oh, we should have, sorry. You could go to the next slide. Oh, so here apologize, moving too fast. These are the 10 commitments that we had. Some were internal facing and some were external facing. Next slide, please. So Kaela will take us through environmental justice.
Could I ask Nancy before you leave on that slide? Point number 6, I think that now we're at a point that you might want to consider expanding point number 6 to include HSIs, Hispanic serving institutions, and some of the tribal colleges, because it just shows that, it just shows that we're ready to just be more intentional and move on to another level.
Yes, trustee. So the goal is to partner for recruiting purposes, to partner with minority serving organizations, right? So that would include, like you're saying, Hispanic organizations.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kaela Mainsah, and I'm the Vice President of Environmental Justice. And Trustee Gonzalez, I think you stole one of my talking points, so hopefully that works out. So thank you, Nancy, and thank you for the opportunity to present our progress on our DEI plan. As Nancy mentioned, we were tasked with implementing the external facing, 2 components of the external facing parts of the 10-point racial justice plan. Firstly, to promote understanding of historically disadvantaged communities for NYPA employees, and secondly, to broaden our existing STEM partnerships and programs to ensure that we're bringing more value to our communities. So we're currently in year 4 of our plan, and for this presentation, I'll focus on our accomplishments, lessons learned, some of the challenges we've experienced, and the opportunities for improvement. So let's begin with fostering an understanding of our communities. We were asked to create an enterprise-wide service program, and that's exactly what we've accomplished. To date, we've engaged NYPA employees at all NYPA regions, including at the canals, and some union staff have also participated. As you can see, we still have a way to go in terms of engaging all of NYPA, but we've had some successes, and there's some barriers to union staff participating as well. So in terms of delivering our programs, we partner with a variety of community-based organizations working on projects that our stakeholders have deemed essential to their mission. And this really enforces our mission to be a good neighbor. While our volunteer corps is a service opportunity for our employees, it's also an educational opportunity. Every event begins with a presentation from our community-based organizations, highlighting the mission and their challenges. And over the last few years, our events have evolved from those traditional community beautification projects to opportunities to reflect NYPA values around sustainability, around environmental stewardship. The photo represents an event held in partnership with New York State DEC at Lock 23 of the State Canals Park. Employees and children from local community learned together about water quality, fish identification, and environmental stewardship, and walked away with a lifelong skill. And the best thing about that is that every child caught a fish. So that was pretty good. But the final category of the EJ Volunteer Corps is that it's really sharing expertise and leveraging our expertise for our communities. And I'd really like to call out and commend 3 departments who've really stood above and beyond in partnering with us about this. First is cybersecurity, led by Rob Piasek and Vic Costanza, who is here. They've dedicated a considerable amount of time the Utica Central School District, advising on curriculum, classroom equipment, design, as they build out a cybersecurity program at their new high school center. NYPA operations have also provided support, community energy preparedness. Most recently, NYPA pilots, Captain Scott Scriven and Todd Agee, joined us, sharing STEM career pathways in the aviation industry. And we know that Peter Calastizis, I can never say that word, we just call him Peter K, Drone Pete. He has conducted 19 weeks of STEM, out above and beyond his own role. So we really have very good partnerships. And the value of volunteering, corporate volunteering programs is well documented. And our employees really have that pride in participating in something that brings tangible value, and that's evident. I can give you a small example of how our employees' presence humanizes NYPA to our stakeholders. Recently, Eve Noel and Mecca Ngwu, a NYPA engineer, recently joined us for a Black History event at the Astoria Public Houses with the NYCHA Housing Authority in Astoria. And they both shared their career pathways as STEM professionals. And I was shamelessly eavesdropping as the executive director at NYCHA expressed his gratitude and his pride that a man of color was able to share his journey from childhood to become the senior vice president of strategy at the largest state public utility in the country. That was really heartwarming. And so in summary, we're leveraging NYPA resources and the enthusiasm of employees to enhance strategic community partnership. Astoria Houses and NYCHA is a real strategic community partner. And it's about our employees understanding exactly who environmental justice communities are, what their historical and existing burden is, and how when they go back, how they can try and increase the lens and on what they can do in their own jobs. That's how you end up with a partnership between R&D, between Eric and John Canale to deliver a program in the east side of Buffalo, a community project east of putting together and understanding who our communities are and what the challenges they face. Next slide, please. The second component is PTech, and it's about investing, PTech and scholarships, about investing in the next generation and creating pathways to clean energy jobs. So since 2001, NYPA has awarded 30 scholarships, and by May of this year, the number will increase to 50 scholarships with a total investment of $500,000. Our scholars remain on track, and our first cohort will graduate in 2025. Through the PTech program, we've implemented NYPA's first paid internship for high school students from historically underserved communities, supporting students from 9th grade to the completion of a free energy-related associate degree. As you can see, our PTech partnerships between high schools and community colleges are geographically dispersed. And to date, we've engaged over 700 students in the year-long career academy. NYPA employees serve as PTech mentors, as project managers, and ultimately we've hired 83 students as summer interns. As you can see from that table, there is a gap, and that gap is beginning to increase as we go towards our 2025 goals, and I'll address that later. But before that, we go to the next slide, we talk about our outcomes. So we've talked extensively about industry certifications. We're very, very proud that our students emerge with an industry certification as part of the NYPA internship. I want to talk a little bit about our skills mapping process. And that's the process that involves defining entry-level positions and then working with the school and the community college to determine the specific sequence of curriculum modules that will lead to acquiring the necessary entry-level skills. Because the technology evolves so rapidly, it's an iterative process. It's reviewed periodically to ensure that students graduate with the most up-to-date and in-demand skills. And you can imagine, this is a very intensive process, and the commitment of the team, particularly cybersecurity, again, who are the stars of the show, has led to a new entry-level cybersecurity analyst position at NYPA, and we're really grateful and excited about that. And finally, the litmus test is that translation to jobs. Last month, we told you about our PTech hire, Edina Hasek, who's an assistant systems operator at Clark Energy Center. And you can see we've heard about 5 more, our suppliers, our customers, and some of our community-based organizations are hiring our interns, and we're excited about that. Next slide, please. Next, thank you. And so in the last 2 slides, I want to briefly discuss the PTech and scholarship programs through the lens of barriers, solutions, and aspirations. So there are institutional barriers for PTech students seeking a NYPA internship. Students must be 18 years old they must have 12 college credits. And as you know, PTech is a 6-year program. So there are approximately, as I mentioned, over 700 PTech students that we have invested in but can't offer an internship. So we just completed an RFP to engage diverse suppliers to administer that year-round fellowship targeting students under 18. The second challenge is our actual 2025 goal to hire 100 interns per year. And the intensity of that internship, the year-round mentorship, the project management, our students need more guidance to be able to complete those projects. So we need a lot of NYPA and employee time. There's a strain on NYPA space, for example, in CNE, and also NYPA employees' time. I mean, I've heard that they have other things to do, like running the plant or delivering customer projects. And I don't know why they wouldn't spend time on us. But anyway, we really appreciate the time. But we've just completed an RFP for externships. We're asking bidders to consider interviewing and hiring our interns for any of their open positions. Finally, we've put together a working group where we share best practice with other industry partners. And we're finding that the NYPA PTech internship is very unique. There are no other, very few other PTech partnerships that have that breadth of engaging with New York City school districts, but also all those regional school districts. And very few of them have completed that skills mapping. And so we've been advised to document our internship process, the data analytics, the presentation at the end, and the real customer project for credit bearing at CUNY and SUNY to get SUNY credits. And you know, COVID really had an effect on low-income communities and communities of color. So students are catching up, still catching up from COVID. And so in some cases, they have to decide between taking a NYPA internship and completing their academic credit. So that prospect of having that NYPA internship become a credit-bearing internship is just going to be a game changer, and it will be a real asset. So the final slide is on scholarships. Finally, barriers to scholarship participation. If you recall, our scholarships are administered by community-based organizations. We pay them an administrative fee to select candidates from their constituents based on our own eligibility criteria. And a number of partners are volunteer run. They're based on that endowment model, and that presents a challenge in participating with some of our own institutional processes and procedures. We need professional and commercial liability. We need them to submit a purchase order as opposed to an endowment. And so that's presenting a challenge, and it's resulting in a shrinking pool of administrative partners. The second part of it is the issue that Trustee Gonzalez just brought up. The goal of the Future Energy Leaders Scholarship was to increase the number of professionals of color in the energy industry with consideration given to Black candidates. We recognize that race is only one of the 48 criteria that determines and characterizes historically disadvantaged communities. So we're looking for expansion of those administrative partners as we recruit for scholarships. So we're convening a team of HR, legal, SSM, ethics to explore alternative methods for engaging scholarship organizations. We revisit the administrative partner fee, benchmark against DEI college scholarships, and we've also come across new models that really combine the college scholarship with apprenticeship programs into the trade industries. And so we're excited about incorporating some of those things as we move forward. Finally, on a personal note, we revamped the environmental justice program about 7 years ago, and we began this with a series of community listening sessions. And what we heard loud and clear was that need for students and communities to participate in that just transition to a clean energy economy. And outside of the DEI program, we've conducted a lot of energy industry exposure for thousands of students and adults. And this opportunity through these 3 programs to provide more through our volunteer corps, PTech, and scholarships is the fulfillment of those initial conversations and commitments. And I'm very proud to still be here to be able to deliver on that. So, you know, it's time to scale up, continue measuring outcomes, and accelerating hiring to what everyone is calling these new green collar jobs. Thank you so much for your participation and help and support in that. And so now I'd like to pass it on to Eric Alemany. If you have any questions.
Kaela, before you go, so what's your crystal ball say about the intern probabilities for this summer? The target of
So for this
75?
summer, we have our RFP, we've already chosen the vendors, and so we're very confident that we'll be able to hit that if we have that support from the external vendors to host interns externally, but also to, just kind of support our projects as well.
Yeah, I think anyone else with questions, because there's so much good stuff here, Kaela, that I don't want to miss an opportunity.
Okay, thanks.
So you expect us to rebound in this summer?
I expect us to rebound this summer.
So when you
Okay.
talk about, John, do you have more questions?
No, that's fine.
No, I mean, you're right on target, Kaela. And as I look across the state of New York, we're learning that PTech and BOCES programs are probably the best indicator of success for marginalized students, whether it's because they're in a rural community or because they're in a urban setting. And so you're headed down the right track there. And there's opportunity. I like the idea that you're now looking at bidders to help provide these internships, which expands their commitment and as well as ours. And gosh, there's so much here. I'd be happy at some point if you want to talk about some alternatives, maybe using community foundations or other organizations that already are doing scholarships to work with their community-based partners. So there's some strategies that you might not have thought of that I might be able to help you with. And I don't know, I get really excited and jazzed up when I see your plan, and I've seen those smiles, right? When a young person catches their first fish. That's pretty cool.
Thank you,
Anyone
Trustee
else?
Gonzalez, and we look forward to working with you.
Anyone else have anything to add? All right, moving on. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Kaela, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, Board of Trustees, NYPA leadership, and members of the public. My name is Eric Alemany. I am Senior Director of Supplier Relationship Management within the Strategic Supply Management Department and under Business Services. And I appreciate the opportunity to provide a supplier diversity Tactic B update. So since we started this DEI journey on Vision 2030, we developed and launched 3 diverse business developmental programs geared to support businesses at different maturity levels. Our Supplier Mentor Protege Program, our Surety Bond Training Program, as well as our Small and Local Business Capacity Building Program. We also promoted industry awareness in doing business with NYPA and Canals through supplier outreach events, workshops, informational sessions, webinars, and external publications. The photo to the right shows a recent event that we partnered with Rob Piasek and his team on an informational session, Industry Day, specifically targeting information technology, which we held back in December 23rd, 2020 in White Plains of 2023. With over 200 attendees, we shared global IT trends, upcoming IT projects, and facilitated one-on-one work networking sessions. Tremendous event, a lot of feedback from the IT community. They loved it from that perspective. And this is just one example, one of the things that we've been able to host under this, this DEI journey thus far. Thirdly, we've increased our spend year after year through direct and subcontracts with minority, women-owned businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, and small and local businesses. So at the end of the day, this is really what the crux is all about. It's really reaching communities statewide and providing opportunities for businesses within New York State. Next slide. "2023 marked our 40th year of supplier diversity at the New York Power Authority and Canals. During the 40 years, over $1.8 billion was spent with MWBEs, SDVOBs, and small businesses statewide. To mark this milestone, we decided to expand our supplier diversity efforts. We increased from 24 in 2022 to 40 supplier diversity outreach events, reaching communities from Niagara all the way to Long Island. We also worked with 134 CEOs who invested in their businesses by participating and then graduating from our business readiness programs. At the September 2023 board meeting in Brockport, we heard from 3 of our graduates and how the programs helped them and their businesses. In 2023, several of these same program participants have already competed on direct procurements as well as subcontracting opportunities. Finally, NYPA and Canals exceeded its New York State MWBEs and SDVOB goals. NYPA achieved 23.2% of eligible MWBE spend from a goal of 23%. NYPA also achieved 11% of its eligible spend from a goal of 6%. So what does that really mean? This resulted in more than $136 million with MWBEs and SDVOBs, an increase of $20 million if you compare it to 2022. So that's just an example of how we're reaching communities across the state and really providing dollars to businesses in New York State. Next slide. So what's next? We're working with staff to identify procurement opportunities right now to increase the New York State fiscal year 2024 supplier utilization plan. What does that mean? We are actually engaging a lot of our project managers and staff here to understand what are the procurement opportunities all across New York State. There's a lot of different communities that we're looking to touch. For example, in Messina or Central New York, what are the needs that are to support utilization? How can we engage MWBEs, SDVOBs, and small businesses in those areas to give them opportunities? We are also continuing to engage other businesses to let them know about these same opportunities. So for example, on April 2nd, we will be in Syracuse to meet with businesses to provide insight on projects in Northern and Central New York. We're also planning our annual Supplier Diversity Expo, which will be held on May 9th in White Plains. And I guess at this time, I would like to extend that invitation to each of you and board members on the call. We'd love to see you there because these are great opportunities to meet with businesses and really hear from them on some great opportunities. We are also currently have a cohort participating in our business readiness programs. However, we will be continuing to attract and enroll new businesses to get them ready for the work that we're going to be doing in 2024 and beyond. So really just trying to make sure that they are aware and they have all the tools necessary to help compete and provide value for New York State. So at this time, if there aren't any other questions, I will turn it over to Nancy. But before I kind of do, any questions?
Good stuff. Anyone?
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. And at this time, I will turn it over to Nancy.
Thanks, Eric. Hi again, everybody. So I'm here to talk to you about the internal facing commitments that we have. To begin with, let me acknowledge that in our industry, we face a historical lack of diversity and inclusion, as well as the barrier around the influence of unconscious bias in decision-making. So internally, to address this, the Office of Civil Rights and Inclusion and our stakeholders were charged with reaffirming NYPA's commitment to building and maintaining a diverse and equitable and inclusive culture. We're charged with ensuring that our processes, policies, and procedures are transparent and free from bias. We're charged with expanding ongoing training to our employees on anti-racism and unconscious bias and other problematic conduct, and to increase the cultural competencies around this. And we also were charged with increasing investment in DEI, in the Office of Civil Rights and Inclusion, in our Black employees, and we're charged with creating pathways for career development and upward mobility. We're also charged with casting a wider net to secure a diverse slate of applicants for vacancies by partnering with minority-serving professional organizations, to your point, Trustee Gonzalez. So with that said, we had some areas of focus and opportunities for improvement. And over these past 4 years, these focus areas continue to be of concern to us, right? We're talking about diversity in recruitment, bias mitigation, in talent management, around performance reviews, promotions, developmental opportunities for employees, diverse senior leadership representation. We're talking about employee engagement, especially around underrepresented talent, pay equity, DEI-related training, data collection and analysis. That's looking like self-identification of folks who are in our organization and accurately measuring progress of DEI initiatives. And of course, leadership accountability to make sure that we're doing what we said we would do. These are just some of the areas of focus and opportunities for improvement at NYPA and Canals. So accordingly, the Office of Civil Rights and Inclusion is working across the organization to increase accountability in achieving our DEI goals to educate, engage, and empower our staff. This is about creating an environment where everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed and to contribute. And we have worked to not only educate and build awareness with our teams, we're also setting clear expectations. We're enforcing consequences for those who fail to comply with our policies and engage in microaggressive discriminatory conduct. We are role modeling appropriate behavior because that's important too, so people understand what we're expecting and how to do it. And we continue to define and establish outcomes and measures. So as you can see here, some of the things that we've accomplished to date is supporting employees by launching a DEI competency, which is very important for accountability purposes. And it's in our annual review process. And this competency is established for managers as well as for individual contributors. We had an allyship training across the organization last year, and it was enterprise-wide for managers and employees, represented employees and non-represented employees, and we all engaged in interactive chatter and easy tools to understand better what inequity looks like, what conduct that's not appropriate looks like, and how to address it, whether it's in the moment or escalating that to reporting it upwards. We continue to do Know Your Rights training. So we had introduced that as one of the transparency goals and initiatives so that everyone in the organization understood how to complain and to identify and understand their roles and responsibilities. And also very importantly for managers to understand their duty to report to us. We're offering training and support for people managers to help them better manage their teams. We're also engaging more employees in our employee resource groups. These are not only safe spaces for our employees to congregate and gather and talk about issues that affect them, it's also a channel for developing leadership competencies and for developing our high potential employees. So now our team includes DEI program managers. So the Office of Civil Rights has expanded, right? So we have DEI program managers who are across the sites. We have DEI partners, internal and external stakeholders. We have a DEI communications partner because communicating our expectations to the organization and what we're doing is also important. And as a collective, we have our efforts that have been recognized across the state. So I'll give one example that the Veterans ERG actually submitted a nomination for NYPA for an award. And so NYPA's Total Rewards Benefits Program last year received recognition as best in class with the employer support of the Guard and Reserves Above and Beyond Award. It's a mouthful. This prestigious award recognizes local employers who have gone above and beyond the legal requirements of the Uniformed Services Employment and Re-Employment Rights Act. So that's a testament to the space that we're providing for employees to really have their voice heard and to reflect upwards to management how we're doing as well. Next slide, please. So as part of the 10-point plan, we invested in creating pathways for career development and the mobility of our Black employees to increase representation. However, we have since expanded our efforts to include other historically underrepresented groups. So now our Connected Leadership Academy programming or Pathways development programming is available to Black employees, Asian, Hispanic, and Latino employees as well. And we do have a development program for our women employees. We are creating more opportunities. Sorry, children were late for school. So that's the phone call. We're creating more opportunities for growth and professional development by implementing a more inclusive selection process for the professional development programs that we have. So for example, you're able to self-nominate to participate. And we employ things like blind applications when we're reviewing the applicants for entry into the program. And there's also a new approach to succession planning. We're looking at experience, we're moving away from like tenure. We're looking at developing talent to be prepared to take on leadership roles. We're listening to understand better how we can support our employees through an expanded engagement survey, which now includes a DEI component. And so for the past few years since the engagement survey was instituted, we've enjoyed an increase in engagement year over year each time the cycle was run. And for the DEI component, we're seeing that an improvement there as well, advancing in how people are feeling and a narrowing of the gap between the differences of how folks experience the workplace. So it's important to look at all the different communities that make up NYPA. We're supporting hiring managers with select diversity training and checkpoints for bias throughout our recruiting and selection process. We've learned that with work benefits, all of our employees, we've learned that the work benefits all of our employees because we've implemented enhanced salary transparency and embedded gender inclusive language and EO statements in all our job postings. So the next slide, please. So here, as you can see, we've made progress. When we look at the numbers, we can see our growing impact in engaging our employees this year. So over 2,300 people took the allyship training together across NYPA and Canals. Our employee resource groups continue to have robust growth. So over 200 employees were new and joined an ERG this year. And for the leadership, the professional developmental programs that I mentioned. Last year, we had 61 graduates from the leadership development programs of Pathways, Connected Leadership Academy, and Advancing Women Executives. Next slide, please. And since 2021, we've made progress with all these different initiatives that we have in place, right? As you can see, we've enjoyed year-over-year increased representation of women for the past 3 years by 1.2%. So now women make up 25.3% of NYPA's population. And for people of color, a similar trend has occurred where there's a 3.8% year-over-year increase for the past 3 years. People of color now make up 27.2% of NYPA's population. And that's a testament to the different recruiting initiatives that we have, expanding the candidate pools that we have, and also working on mitigating bias in the recruitment process. Representation in leadership, also a good indicator. So at this point, the representation in leadership has increased by 3.76% over the past 3 years and 1.6% for people of color. And there's the engagement survey that I mentioned before that we're now in the 70th percentile. So it increased our score to like a score of 58 and it keeps getting stronger. And what we can note from the engagement survey also is the narrowing of the gap between the people who are engaged and the people who are disengaged. So the numbers continue to increase for engaged employees and decrease for disengaged employees. And that's a testament to the work of everyone who's partnering with us and continuing to champion a culture of inclusion and building leadership competency on how to manage our teams and how we do work together. Next slide, please. So looking forward, as we look at 4 years since the DEI plan was instituted, we're continuing to invest in DEI. This work is bigger than one department. It requires our collective effort to make a positive shift in the experience of all of our employees. As we launch these efforts to expand employee resource groups, to address pay equity, and increase the regional participation, we're evolving how we work cross-functionally. Next slide, please. So, looking to the future, as we define our path forward, we've evolved our DEI working group to the Ideals team. The team came up with a name because our role is more than just diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're focused on, of course, inclusion, diversity, equity, but we're also focused on accessibility so that everybody can participate in the workplace, leadership, and strategy. Next slide, please. We will meet monthly to continue our progress cross-functionally. The goal is to broaden the pipeline of talent for clean energy careers, improve the experience of all employees at all levels, and collaborate to address the barriers to clean energy futures. So that looks like focusing on what's working to support the culture and values, to continue to improve the experience of all our employees and support leaders in leveraging the tools and the data that we're gonna look at later this year. And of course, we'll continue to monitor the landscape. Next slide. So we've already established where we need to focus cross-functionally to support our customers, communities, and vendors in building a more inclusive culture and DEI focus. 3 years ago, we recognized the urgency of the moment and responded with 3 clear areas that we could influence or impact, right? Internally and externally with EJ and Strategic Supply Management and the Office of Civil Rights and Inclusion. We're now at a point where we can affirmatively state that we've established some foundational initiatives and programs, and now we're exploring how we can expand on that work, what we're doing, And we're asking ourselves, what else can we do beyond these efforts that we've delivered so far to make NYPA and Canals one of the most inclusive public utility organizations? And so I look forward to continuing this work in partnership with everyone and with the support of Justin and with the support of the trustees. So thank you for listening to me this morning. Any questions?
Thank you, Nancy. Go ahead. Any questions for Nancy or any of the others that have presented so far this morning?
Chairman Gonzalez, it sounds like, and you know, these have been fabulous presentations. Sounds like there's tons of activity. NYPA is in a good place as it relates to its DEI objectives and goals. And I invite Nancy and the team to let us know how we can be helpful.
There you go. Thank you. I agree. Anyone else? Well, Nancy, I do want to say that the effort that everyone that presented this morning is putting into proximity to community is only going to help build trust and help NYPA reach its goal of building facilities in communities that have been underrepresented and underserved, right? So it all works hand in hand, and it's really exciting to see how you're just building internal and external trust with communities that we really need for the success of the organization. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for the work you're doing every single day.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we move on? Okay, well, I must say that this was an update and no vote was required. And if we're ready, we'll move on to something that I asked to be put on the agenda, because as I looked at the information around good governance, AI was something that wasn't on anyone's radar a couple of years ago, and now it's on everybody's radar. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for an update. So Ronald, you're on.
Yeah, good morning and thank you. I'm Ron Carroll, VP of Product Development and Data Management within IT. As Trustee Gonzalez said, artificial intelligence, you hear about it everywhere. And I don't know if it's just me and the line of work that I do or what my role is, but I know my Alexa in my kitchen, every day I walk in the kitchen, I see something about AI. I don't know if everyone else sees that too, but AI is not new to NYPA. We've been leveraging AI for a number of years, but what is new is the rapid advancement in capabilities, the potential risks, and then the opportunity to leverage these technologies. It's causing us to focus more efforts on AI. Today, I want to cover a few topics with you to give you an overview of what we're seeing in the industry and what we're doing to develop our AI strategy. I'll start with what is AI, the different types of AI, and then I'll dive into generative AI in more detail. I'll give an overview of our engagement with external parties and how we're learning about AI, and then also leading in the industry. I'll talk about our active development of our AI strategy, and then I'll provide a couple of demos of how we're leveraging AI here at NYPA and Canals. Next slide, please. So what is AI? AI is essentially the capability of a computer to perform tasks that would typically require human intelligence. This includes things like understanding natural language, recognizing patterns, learning from experiences, making decisions, or solving problems. You hear a lot about generative AI or ChatGPT, but there's many different kinds of AI. For example, we here at NYPA, we've been using machine learning and predictive models to predict the optimal time that we should maintain our assets. Historically, AI has been more directed at data scientists, but what we're seeing is the introduction of Gen AI is making it more tangible, more real, you can understand it, and it's actually available to the masses. Many of our use cases, though, are actually using many different types of AI to deliver the solution. And I'll talk about this in one of the demos that I provide. One concept I did want to introduce, and you've probably heard this as well, is the concept of human in the loop. We will likely not fully automate AI. We'll use it to predict or create content, but then we'll have a person validate and then act on the AI outputs. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk about the public version of generative AI and then what we're using here, a private version of generative AI. So you hear in the news all the excitement around AI, but you hear all of the scary risks about AI too. You hear about things around private data being exposed. You hear about company IP being exposed or being used to train models. When you compare the public version to what we're using here at NYPA, the public version, yeah, it's true. Any data that you put out there, you should consider it available to the public, and that data is being used to train the models. You have limited control of the data that you're able to use, and the responses you receive are very much dependent on how you're asking the question. The private version that we plan on using here at NYPA, and I'll demo this later, is managed with security. We manage the security in the data like we do with any other application. We can have the models use NYPA or Canal's specific documents to generate responses. We can control who has access to what application and what data. Then we can modify the prompts to have the responses be more specific to our organization. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we've been doing is we've actually been partnering with a number of folks from the state to advisory partners. And I just want to highlight a few key things in each of these different categories. And you see the logos on the slide here. This is just an example of some of the companies that we're working with. This isn't an extensive list. So we're working with external partners in an advisory role, learning what the organization, what the industry is doing and how we can apply that here at NYPA. We've had access to hundreds of CIOs and CDOs or CDAOs, Chief Data and Analytics Officers, to understand what other companies are doing and where AI is going. We've used this knowledge to help steer us and validate the direction that we're taking. We've also leveraged technology partners. We've been partnering with technology leaders to gain hands-on experience with the technology. And we've learned a lot through that, being able to create an application, to modify the prompts, to see when you ask a certain question, how that result comes back. I had one of my data scientists create a test application where he said, with every question, respond and promote the Eagles Hotel California. And so he sent it to me and I was working with it and it gave me a list of responses. And then at the end, it said, I recommend you listen to the Eagles Hotel California. It will help motivate your team. It's like, okay. And so I sent a message back to him. I said, what is this? He's like, oh, all right. That's prompt engineering that I introduced into the application. So it just gives you an example of the type of control that you can have. You can actually create personas for the applications that we're creating. You'll respond in a pleasant, helpful way, respond in a sarcastic way, respond as Yoda. You can do a lot of different things, and we're learning this through hands-on experience with the tools. The Large Public Power Council, I'm actually co-leading a subcommittee that's sponsored by the CIO Working Group, which Rob is a member of. Last month, we shared NYPA's experience with data and our AI platforms, the processes and example use cases. And we received a lot of feedback and requests to have offline meetings so that other companies can learn more about what we're doing. We're working with the state. I participated in a group that helped formulate the state's AI policy that Governor Hochul released in her State of the Union in January. We've also presented to members of ITS and members of Governor Hochul's staff to share what we're doing in the generative AI space. Some of the comments that we heard related to us leading and really complimenting us for being innovative and leveraging the technology in unique ways. Next slide, please. So early summer last year, Rob, anticipating where AI was going and all the buzz was really starting to gain traction then. He talked to myself and Marwan Mahdi, who's in our innovation office, about starting to mobilize an effort to educate folks about AI and really organize around how do we responsibly implement AI here at NYPA. So we started with sessions with each of the EMC members. We talked about AI, and a lot of what I'm talking about today we discussed in those meetings. And we asked for participation in a working group to start to bring the organization together and develop really a program for how we implement AI. So we had received about 20 names to be part of this working group. We kicked off that working group in November. And then underneath the working group, we have 4 work streams. And those work streams are focused on governance and risk management. So looking at our policies, do the policies that we currently have support AI, creating new policies. For example, we are working on creating a generative AI policy, developing procedures to support those policies, looking at our data governance program, and does that support AI? Another working group or work stream is transformation and organization. That's essentially looking at change management. How do we roll out AI applications and make people feel comfortable that AI is there to augment their job, not replace their job? We have another work stream focused on use case framework. So before generative AI, the use cases would trickle in. Once generative AI became available, we are getting more use cases than we have capacity. So we have to get better at how do we prioritize what use cases we work on, how do we demonstrate value, and how do we move those use cases from a proof of concept to full production implementation. And then the last work stream is AI platforms and technologies. And this is the work stream that's looking at the technologies, testing the technologies. How can we leverage those technologies to support the use cases that are coming in? So matching the technology with the use case. So right now we have close to 70 individuals from across all business units working on these work streams. We're developing the plans for what we need to do now, and then what we need to do next quarter and 6 months from now. And things are changing so rapidly, we have to be nimble. We have to be able to adjust as new technologies are introduced, new capabilities, and how do we adjust to that? So next slide. So I mentioned a couple of demos, so I'll switch over to the demos, but I kind of want to tee them up for you. So one of them is NYPA's version of ChatGPT. So it's similar to the public version of ChatGPT, but it is built within our secure domain and has all the security capabilities that I mentioned earlier that we have with other applications and data. I mentioned we're developing a Gen AI policy and a communication plan, and we have this rolled out. There's about 30 people that are part of a pilot, and we are developing the rollout plan, probably a phased rollout to introduce it to the organization. The other use case that I'll cover is we have, when the original barge canal was built in the early 1900s, there's about 60,000 design documents that were paper and were in the state archives. Not very easy to access those documents. So when we had canals engineers going out to sites and they needed to work on our assets, they didn't really have access to information on how they were originally built. So what we did is we digitized those documents, and we used computer vision, which is a form of AI, to categorize the different images on those documents. We used optical character recognition, another early form of AI, to pull the text off of those documents. And then we use generative AI, another form of AI, to take that information and summarize it into a description of each of those documents. And so now you can search on those documents, you can view the image, you can click on it, you can zoom into it, and you can actually get a summary of what the document contains. So let me pause if there's any questions while I switch over to the demo. Okay. So this is, if you've used ChatGPT, looks similar. It's a very simple interface. Start chatting. Down here, you can say, let me say, create a AI policy. So I type that question in, we're generating an answer. And I did this demo to our internal business controls group, and I called it the jaw-dropping meeting, because when I said, create an AI policy, and you can see how quickly it starts to generate a policy. The jaw-dropping was that team saying, wow, that would have taken us hours to do this. So you can see it's still generating. Okay, so we have a base of a policy. Now I could say, more detail about scope. And so what you're seeing is I asked the one question, it gave me an answer, and then I'm asking another question, and it's just continuing that conversation based on the first question that I asked. So now you can see, okay, the scope of the policy refers to, you get into more detail, AI systems, AI-related activities, personnel, data, and it gives you more information about the policy. So it's that easy. I think what we're seeing is you get out of it what you put into it. So you have to give it enough context to be able to answer the question. But you can see that, this isn't, I wouldn't copy paste this and say, okay, that's our policy, but it's a start. And then you can go through each section and ask for more detail and start to generate that policy and review it and refine it to what NYPA and Canal's needs. If I wanted to start a new question or a new conversation, I would just hit this broom here and start a new conversation. So that's the NYPA Canal's version of ChatGPT. The other demo I will do. My tab is hidden. Let me stop sharing. Bear with me, apologies. Okay, so the other application, this is the Canals application. And you could see it's a basic search here, but and this is still a prototype. So like the formatting is not perfect and not exactly what we would roll out, but you can see there's the different document types. And this was the categorization that was done to say, you know, this document is a calculation, a layout, a prism drawing. You have contract numbers that are pulled out, and then you have the year of the documents. So I'll just do a quick search. I live up in the Finger Lakes area, about 10 miles south of the Erie Canal in the town of Palmyra. So let me just do a search on Palmyra, and you can see the documents related to Palmyra come back here. Let me just look at layout. So now it filters down to just layouts. And you can see here under the document name, if you can see my cursor, you can see the summary. And this was actually created by the Gen AI. And you see words like gutters, cement sidewalk. And so if I click on the document and I could zoom in, and you could start to see, oh, here we have paved gutter, we have cement sidewalk. So you start to see the words that are on the document that help to create that summary. So that's I mean, I'm not an engineer, so a lot of what's on here I wouldn't use it, but I think the engineers, it's you know, very useful to them. And I think it's a neat way of, if you look at the documents here, so the date on the document, 1913, you know, you look at the handwriting, I think the ballpoint pen was invented in the 1930s. So this was a fountain pen, and you look at how neat the writing is. And it's a neat way to bring the past and connect it with the present and the future. So that's all I wanted to cover today. If there's any questions.
Ron, it's Lewis Warren. Just on the documents here, how did you digitize these paper documents, historic records, into the generative AI? Is it a traditional scanning process, or was it more involved in that?
No, it was a traditional scanning process, and we had a database. They're actually on a SharePoint, and we have the database of all the documents. And then we used AI using those images to do the categorization, the OCR, and then the generative AI to create the summary.
That is fabulous. You think about the man hours, just the thousands of man hours it would have taken you by folks on your team, humans, to do this versus AI, and that the AI can lift the actual language in these maps and in these architectural renderings. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
In your first example, so your NYPA Chat GPT site, so is that open for any of your engineers or senior folks at NYPA? How are you guys thinking about that?
Right now, it's only open to about 30 people. We are developing the rollout plan. We'll probably roll it out in phases, and you know, more of the, I'll say, the knowledge workers would likely be you know, the first groups to get it, because what we want to do is even with the group that has it today, the 30 folks, we did a survey because we wanted to collect feedback. Are you using it? How are you using it? Is it beneficial? Are there challenges that you're facing? So we want to do introduce to a larger group, collect feedback, make improvements, roll it out to a larger group, just kind of repeat that cycle.
And I'll share one. I don't know if this is, maybe we can hunt it down, how this all ties in as well to NYPA's core mission of generation transmission, which is, I heard from a state treasurer that they've done a study in their big state, and the energy needs from generative AI are 20 times the needs of going to a Google search. So let me be clear. So if you and I do a Google search about Ron's Palmyra Canal's building, Google will pull that up, but it requires, let's just say, 1 quantum of energy. But if you do it, generative AI actually requires more energy because it goes out to more sources, and it is going out to more data centers. I don't know if that sounds right to you all, but I was in a seminar last night and heard that metric. That as soon as we move to generative AI in a more comprehensive fashion, the energy needs are going to be multifold what we're using today. I don't know if that makes sense. Justin, I know you and I were speaking about that as well, but Ron, I don't know if that's part of your thing, but that's how it ties into the core mission of NYPA.
Yeah, let me just say, I mean, and I think many of you probably saw the article in the Wall Street Journal just the other day about the demand of data centers on the grid. So this is a big issue for the industry. I don't know about the 20x number, but probably certainly be higher than a typical Google search. But yeah, it's one of the things that the industry's super focused on in terms of providing the grid infrastructure and the generation to be able to support the build out of these industries.
Yeah, and if I could just add, I was at a conference yesterday, and yeah, I think there's a few things: the energy, there's the cost that we need to consider, there's the performance, and there's a lot of these large models being built, but bigger isn't always going to be better. And so part of what we're doing in that AI platform and technology work stream is looking at, well, what models are out there in the industry and which ones should we be using so we have models that are more fit for purpose versus you've got these large models that are not really necessary and they don't perform as well because there is so much data that goes into the training of the model. So that's something, just an example of the work streams and one of the things that we're looking at.
Well, this was incredibly powerful, and kudos to Chairman Gonzalez for getting it on the docket today. So thanks, B.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions? Because this will be a recurring topic for us based on how quickly it changes. But it's our first shot at it. Well,
Great.
hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. So once again, I think I have to state that this is an update and no vote was required. Oh my gosh, we're at the consent agenda. I think I'm going to gift you all some time back, it looks like.
You're the best.
Huh?
You're the best.
So let me just state that the consent agenda is before us, which consists of routine housekeeping items. I do want to point out that there's always a lot of detail in the consent agenda about specific ways NYPA does business, but I do want to let everybody know that thank you for completing the self-review, and we will make every effort as we go through the year of agenda setting to address the issue of just building bigger and better understanding of NYPA's work and its impact across the organization. With that said, I think I can ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank
Trustee Trainor.
you.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I think the motion carries. Let me see, where am I? The next meeting of the Joint Governance Committee is scheduled for October 16th, 2024. May I have a motion to close the meeting, please?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second. Morris?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks
Vee.
very much, B. Well done.